Hi, and welcome to the skill of adding rational expressions. For this, we're going to be working with the problem of simplifying x plus 2 divided by x squared minus 3x plus 5 divided by x squared plus x minus 12. So take a moment, write this down so that you can follow along as we work through this. Now, something that's important when we're adding fractions is that we need to find the least common denominator, the LCD. Now, something that we should do in order to find the LCD is factor the denominators, if possible. Sometimes you might not have to, but sometimes that's like maybe the step you should start at. So if we look at these two denominators, this first one definitely can factor, has a GCF, and both terms have an x. So I'm not going to change the numerator. I'm going to leave that as x plus 2 divided by, but the denominator I'm going to factor into x times x minus 3. That x squared divided by x leaves me with an x, and a negative 3x divided by an x results in a negative 3. So I factored the denominator of that first fraction plus. Now, for this next one, I might notice it doesn't have a GCF. Not every single term has a factor in common. This, though, does seem to kind of be one of those where we could think of like, oh, what multiplies to be a negative 12 and adds to be 1. So again, the numerator doesn't change, but I'm thinking that it's probably going to factor into two numbers that multiply to be negative 12 and add to 1 are 4 and negative 3. So I'm going to have x plus 4 times x minus 3. You can always expand to check and make sure that you factored it correctly. Now, we've factored the denominators to start trying to identify what our LCD is. And if I look at both denominators, so to get the LCD, I really want to kind of say like, oh, I noticed the first fraction has an x as a standalone, and that's not in the other one. Then I noticed that both actually have the factor of x minus 3. The first fraction doesn't have any other factors in its denominator. The second fraction, though, also has an x plus 4. So this is going to be the LCD, x times x minus 3 times x plus 4. Now that we've identified what the least common denominator is, we need to think about how do we turn each fraction into that. And so for this first one, if I want to have x times x minus 3 times x plus 4, I might notice it's missing the x plus 4. And so we kind of have to figure out what factor is missing. Now, if you multiply the denominator by that, you also need to multiply the numerator by that. Because x plus 4 divided by x plus 4 is a factor of 1. That's the multiplicative identity. So we're not changing the fraction, we're just making it look different. And so I do have to be careful with expansion. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is plus 2x, and then 4 times x is plus 4x, and 4 times 2 is plus 8. And so I've taken that first fraction and I've gotten it so that it has the least common denominator of x times x minus 3 times x plus 4. I'll have to clean it up in a moment, but I'm going to leave it like that for now. Then I have plus. If I go to the second fraction, I might notice, it has the x plus 4, it has the x minus 3. What it's missing is the factor of x. So if I multiply the denominator by x, I also have to multiply the numerator by x. This one's a little bit easier because we just have x times 5, which will result in 5x. And so we've got x times x minus 3 times x plus 4 in our denominator and 5x in our numerator. So anytime you're trying to figure out what the LCD is, you look at what are all the factors in the denominator And then as you adjust the fraction to get the least common denominator, you want to think about what factor is missing. Okay, so now we just need to clean up a couple things. That we can say, okay, we know that our least common denominator is x times x minus 3 times x plus 4. Since they're the same, that's what we're going to have. And now I just add the numerators. So I've got an x squared, and I don't have any other x squared. I've got a 2x, a 4x, and a 5x. Those are all like terms, so that's 6, 11 x's. And then I have the constant of 8. And so sometimes we might need to check and see if this could factor further in the numerator. I don't think it does in this case, so we would be done simplifying. Also, you might be asked a question of what are the restraints on x, or what are the restrictions? And so we would say like, okay, what makes the denominator 0? Because we can't divide by 0. So we might want to say like x cannot equal 0. That's this, like right here. What would make that factor 0 is 3. And what would make the other factor 0 is negative 4. So if it asks about the restrictions on x, these would be the three numbers that x could not be because it would make the denominator 0. So here is kind of like our final answer. So I hope that going through this problem helped you to think about identifying your least common denominator, and in order to do that, the importance of factoring the denominators. Then, once you've identified the LCD, thinking about what each fraction's denominator is missing, and multiplying by that factor of 1 that would put the denominator or get that factor into the denominator. And then once you have the same denominator, thinking about adding the numerators and combining like terms. So I hope this helped, and good luck with your review.